Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me? Can you put your hand up in the back row if you can hear me? Great, thank you very much. Terrific. Welcome back to our afternoon session, and thank you for returning after lunch. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Loretta O'Donnell, and I'm the Vice-Provost Academic Affairs here at Nazarbayev University. And for some years, I was a colleague of Laura Poole-Warren's at the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia. It's my great privilege and pleasure today to moderate this panel. This panel will be really exploring how these big themes that we discussed in our session this morning are being interpreted and implemented here at Nazarbayev University. And I think many of you will be familiar with some, if not all, of our deans, and I'm very, very briefly going to introduce them to you so that you know who they are, and they'll all be speaking from their own perspective, from their own disciplinary perspective, about how these big themes matter in their various schools here at Nazarbayev University. And then I've got a few remarks to make. I'll be very quick. And then each dean will have a 7-minute time frame in which to give their reflections and remarks and thoughts about these big picture issues on disruption and education. And then we will ask you, while they're speaking, to use the pigeonhole facility that you used earlier today with Laura and Jamil and Stavros. So I will ask Waliha to open the pigeonhole question facility. You won't see the questions on the screen until Weng, who will be our last dean, will be speaking, and then they should all come up. And then as moderator, I'll be looking at the questions and we'll be choosing a few of the questions to ask. So as you know, you are welcome to include your name on the question, or you're welcome to be anonymous. Whatever suits you, both ways are fine. And if you would like to address your question to a specific panel member, please feel free to do so. That is perfectly fine. Or if you just say it's to any of the panel members, that's great as well. So we look forward to an interactive discussion. And I know Shigeya will want something provocative, so please don't hold back. I think here at Nazarbayev University, we've learned the art of receiving feedback. So give us the feedback and we'll take it. We will take it. We may not agree with it, but I promise you we will take it. Okay, so let me introduce our distinguished panel today. Our first speaker in just a few moments will be Dean Aida Sagintayeva. Some of you will know Aida as one of the leading lights here in Kazakhstan. She is the Dean of the Graduate School of Education, and she is transforming the education landscape one student at a time. And Aida's theme today will be very interesting. It will be on the human touch in the technological era. So we look forward to hearing Aida's presentation in just a moment. Secondly, on the panel, we have my colleague Harris Doumanidis. Harris's PhD is from MIT. He comes with a very deep scholarly background and a lot of experience in research in the United States and around the world before he came here just a few short months ago. Harris is not only the Vice Provost for Research, he is also the acting dean of the School of Mining and Geosciences, and it's actually in that role that he's part of the panel today to give a dean's perspective on disruption in that particular discipline. Next, we have Patrick Duparcq. Patrick's PhD is from Purdue. He is the Dean of the Graduate School of Business. His expertise is in marketing, specifically digital marketing. And many of you will know Patrick and his colleagues who are very active on social media, really exploring how we can deliver on the ambition of Nazarbayev University. Following Patrick, we have Dean Vassilios Tourassis, whose PhD is from Carnegie Mellon University. Vassilios is originally from Greece, but he's spent a lot of his career in the United States before he came here to Kazakhstan. And his themes will be on the concept of obsolete knowledge, human skills, and who probably will touch on the conservatism of the professoriate. So we'll be very interested to hear what Vassilios' thoughts are in his role as Dean of the School of Science and Technology, and his specific expertise is in robotics and mechatronics. And finally today we have Dean Weng, whose PhD is from the Australian National University, but we've been extremely fortunate to have Weng Tat here at Nazarbayev University for the last 2 years or so, really on secondment from his role in the National University of Singapore from the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy. So Weng Tat brings a wealth of experience, both in theory and in practice, in terms of civil service reform. Not only is he very active leading the school here, but he's active in executive education and outreach to the civil service here in Kazakhstan and in the region. And he'll be talking about challenges of government, the role of disruption, and the importance of critical and creative thinking. So please join me in welcoming the Deans to this session today. Just before I ask Aida to begin, I'd just like to make a few opening remarks, if I may. We heard this morning that the world is complex, it's challenging, and it's changing all the time. Therefore, the role of the dean in a research-intensive startup university in a post-Soviet environment is particularly complex. You might see in the top atrium out here the words create, innovate, and disrupt. They're the themes that we see in the showcase of new ideas, new prototypes, and new concepts that are being developed. And I think that's part of the theme of this whole conference. And it reminds me of a quote by Tom Friedman, who's one of my favourite New York Times columnists. And he's really suggesting that we need to be either ahead of the curve or behind the curve. We'll either be riding the wave of change or we will be dumped or smashed by it. So as he says, whatever can be done will be done. The only question is, will it be done by you or to you? But it will be done. Now, many of you and many of your families and friends will be thinking about higher education in the frame of jobs. What does it mean to have a higher education? What does it mean to get a degree? And what does it mean in terms of jobs? Now, I put this up just for discussion, just for debate. You may agree or disagree, and you may think this is irrelevant. But I think in the interest of having a debate, let's have a look at some recent research by PwC, who argue that STEM salaries are double non-STEM salaries. And the Australian Bureau of Statistics informed us recently that certainly in Australia, the growth in STEM jobs is 1.5 times that of non-STEM since 2005. So what does that mean for a complex, interdisciplinary research university like ours? The OECD tell us that universities need to think about creating environments where we learn, we unlearn, and we relearn. And they've got various models from various conferences that help us to think about that in a fairly deep way. I think we all know about education trends. We can talk about free coding classes for kindergarten students. We can talk about artificial intelligence. We can talk about a whole range of things. I think all of this is very familiar to everybody in the room today. The challenge is, what do we do with this? How do we make this work? How do we implement these big picture themes? Do we still live in silos, or do we follow the ideas of people from the OECD who are saying that knowledge is no longer stacked in silos? So what's required is the capacity to think across disciplines. We know that tomorrow's scientists won't all come from, let's say, the United States. They will increasingly come from China, from the Russian Federation, and from other countries. They will not all come from the United States. So what do we do with this? How do we work with this reality? There's so many disruptive forces, as we heard about this morning. What does that mean for the future of work? How do we live? How do we implement? How do we think short term? How do we prepare for the long term in a research-intensive university? Are the universal values of universities around curiosity and collegiality, academic and research integrity, are they values that we need to keep? Are they values that we need to dispose of? Are they values that we need to change as time goes on? We have a lot of resources, as we heard this morning, in big universities like ours, big research-intensive universities. We have financial resources, human resources, intellectual and cultural resources, and we're transforming those into forms of capital. How do we do that in the era of disruption? And I really like some work done in the area of library science, which says that libraries, and to my interpretation, this is another way of thinking about universities themselves, but libraries, say the library scientists, libraries are a platform for the messy, rich networks of people and ideas. I like the phrase messy, rich networks. I think it speaks to the creativity that we all need. Because we are part of networks. As we've heard this morning, Nazarbayev University is part of the Asian University Alliance. As with the University of New South Wales, we are also part of the University Alliance of the Silk Road. There are many alliances and networks that we are part of. So it's messy at the moment, but these networks are rich and they illuminate all that we do. And we talked a little bit this morning about the difference between teaching and research. And I would like to thank my colleague Anne Scholl, who may not be in the room at the moment, but she highlighted this particular quote from a Times Higher Education research report published only this week, which is stating that in terms of the Scandinavian data, master's students were found to get better grades when they were taught by teachers with higher quality publications. It's not true in undergraduate students, it is true for master's students. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, the deans are here to give us their perspective about what it means for Nazarbayev University. So the deans have got 7 minutes each. There's a clock here in front. So we'll do 7 minutes each from the deans. And as I said before, please feel free to use the Pigeonhole question application and ask any question of any panel member as the deans are speaking. Once Weng Tat is finished, we'll go in order from Aida to Harris to Patrick to Vassilios to Weng Tat. Once Weng Tat's finished, Waliha will open up the Pigeonhole and you'll be able to see all the questions. So over to you, Aida.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Loretta. So, welcome everyone to Nazarbayev University.
Can you hear?
Can you hear me? No? Hello? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Hi. Can you hear me now? Okay, thank you. Thanks. So, digitalization of education is one of the most discussed issues nowadays, and it has an impact not only on educational sphere but also many other industries. For example, Pearson Publishing House is incurring losses because of this phenomenon. People do not buy paper books, and they have many other gadgets to read books and to be educated themselves. Look at the market of education. Current investment into digitalization of education is equal to $248 billion. And is estimated to increase up to $252 by 2020. So we should admit, even if we do not like or disagree with it, we should admit that educational technologies are an inevitable part of our lives. But I would like to declare today to keep human touch and make our hearts sing in the tech age. Let me read the words of the tech guru Steve Jobs to be translated to all guests. It is in Apple's DNA that technology alone is not enough. It's technology married with liberal arts, married with the humanities, that yields us the result that make our heart sing. And it will be motto of my presentation today. The Institute for the Future says that these mentioned skills will be highly demanded by employers. And you may see that soft skills are prevalent here. And I'm really happy for this. We do agree with a digital architect, Dr. Price, that functions requiring emotional intelligence, empathy, compassion, creative judgment are increasingly valued in our culture. And today I would like to share with you a vision of a futurologist, a historian, Yuval Noah Harari, that really sounds shocking and even scary. He predicts that just as mass industrialization created the working class, the AI revolution will create a new unworking class. People whose experience, skills, and knowledge will be completely unsuitable in the society. They will be unemployed. But what they are going to do? How are they going to survive? Harari says, and his answer is very shocking, the coming technological bonanza will probably make it feasible to feed and support people even without any effort from their side. But what will keep them occupied and content? One answer might be drugs and computer games. Unnecessary people might spend increasing amounts of time with 3D virtual reality worlds that would provide them with far more excitement and emotional engagement than the drab reality outside. Yet such a development would deal a mortal blow to the liberal belief and the sacredness of human life and of human experiences. Not to give way to such scary scenarios, we have to work hard on humanization of education and tame disruptive technologies to have them play to our hands. Graduate School of Education is trying hard to keep quality human interaction, live communication, and preserve through peer feedback. By doing so, we stick to the principle discussio mater veritas est, which in English means the truth is born in discussions. And I mean here oral discussion in a traditional classroom with a professor and students sitting together. Ed schools around the world should play a key role in curricular innovations given the fast speed of disruptive technologies. Apart from the media literacy, we should mind digital ethics. Checking Facebooks and our social networks, we are cheating a little bit. With massification, we should talk about adaptive strategies, that we should be adaptive to each student's needs. We get carried away with digitalization, but we forget about peer learning and collaboration via virtual collaboration or personal collaboration. So I want to finish my presentation with the words, let's keep the human touch and make our hearts sing together. Thank you so much. I can give it to you. It's fine.
I would like to welcome you to this wonderful forum, and I also thank Aida for her wonderful introduction to the subject and for giving me 3 extra minutes to talk.
Okay.
Well, it's still not as much as Loretta's 12 minutes, but all right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the brave new world of disruption. And I hope by this time everyone has convinced you that this will certainly affect education. So here is the paradigm. I do not know if this guy is Dr. Jamil's grandson, but he's sitting in a library and he prefers being educated with the new way. So here is the new and the old side by side. Let's say now that a real disruption takes place. Let's say an earthquake or an act of terror, which disrupts electricity, the network, and everything. This guy runs on batteries, and he has downloaded the content of relativity theory or whatever he studies, so he may not be affected. My questions are, A, will he notice that something is going on? B, does he realize he's in a library and has shelves and books by which he can protect himself? 3, can he, without his artificial brain, which is now inoperative, find his parents? Is he trained to do so? So let this presentation be like a survival guide to disruption, hopefully not being too disruptive for you, and you should be able to follow. So I'll speak first as the Interim Dean of Mining and Geosciences. I need to report, my bosses are sitting in the front row, and then I'll speak out by my mind as Vice-Provost. So let me start with the first, transformation. This is what our age is known for. So taking sciences and making them into, transforming them into technology. Now, transformation is like a two-sided coin or a double-edged sword. One side we are very excited about, being able to do new things. So transforming is enabling. However, on the other side, it's also disrupting. That is, not being able to do things the way we used to. And of course, many people of us delight to disrupt others, including my kids, but no one likes to be disrupted, like my wife. So let's talk about disruption, which is the problem. That's what we hate. So in mining and geosciences, the school, we're just starting. We just had 1 year of the master's program in mining, and we're having now also a master's in petroleum, and we're starting our undergraduate programs in mining, petroleum, and geosciences. So we do not have experience. But out of my former life, I can see some disruptions coming up, and we are preparing to take care of them. So one of them is, of course, not only technology, but the oscillation of the market. So this mismatch between supply and demand makes the price of oil and mining ores as commodities to go up and down. And I think we all realize what's going on the markets. So as the market goes up and down, so does the interest of the students in the subject matter of oil and mining. So this is actually a disruption because we may take fewer and fewer students when this happens, and also of lower quality. So how do we deal with that? So one thing is we do what the markets do. Whenever the oil is cheap, what they do is they dehydrogenize gas in order to produce plastics, or they pyrolyze oils in order to produce composites like nanocomposites, biocomposites, which are the prime materials for the aerospace, the wind turbine industry, and so many more. So they try to produce higher value-added products. So that's what we are thinking of doing with our students, basically to train them in the downstream market, that is in metallurgy and polymer technology, so they can take advantage of the markets which take advantage of the lower price of the commodities. Also, to do that, we're thinking of introducing minors and secondary fields of study in the PhD, just to train them in an alternative field, so they align with the markets. But what we're also trying to do is forecast these changes and build some capacity, some capacitance, and some buffering, so that the students, our students, will be aligned with the market when they graduate, not what they get in. So when they ask us what to study, we say, don't follow the markets, because the markets oscillate very fast. You cannot be changing major twice a year. Follow your interests, because your interests are likely to change more slowly. Of course they change, but they change over many years or decades. So do this, and then we try to train them in upstream sciences, that is the geosciences, material sciences, which are more fundamental than mining and petroleum. So they get the basics. And in doing so, to do that, we will try to have cross-listed courses as technical electives with other schools. So this is our plan of attack for disruption in the school. Let's generalize now a little bit and face this problem of the digital disruption to education. No doubt we live in the age of information, big data, artificial intelligence, and so on. So the question is, how does this digital age affect the value of the material that we produce via research and we transmit to our students through education? Is the value higher or lower? Well, in doing so, we have to understand what is the value of some educational material or research material. Value consists of two factors, the quantity and the quality. The digital machine, which of course now can store any information as numbers, we sometimes presume that it can take any decision through artificial intelligence. So we try to digitize the decision-making capability. But this actually is a temptation, because now I guess we sit on the internet, we have all the data, And we tend to think that everything that could be discovered has been discovered. You blog and you find an answer. Well, then we try to bin count quality, that is, associate quality or interest or a value with a number. And this is actually what we are now doing with the pigeonhole. This is the likes and the votes on Facebook. These are the citations in published papers. So popularity is actually, which is a number, is associated with quality. But quality, according to... All right. Well, it didn't start at 8. Okay. Well, I can wrap up. Sorry. Okay. All right. Okay.
2 minutes.
No, I'll just finish. No. So bin counting for authors is a valuable post. So our age is trained to count bins. And in doing so, I guess we see no difference between stupidity and genius. Genius actually, as Einstein said, has a limit, because omniscience is a quality of the divinity. So we are limited on that. However, inability to talk about quality has no limit. And of course, artificial intelligence, as we would find out if I were to continue, that would not be a substitute for human stupidity. Misrepresenting the truth, as my lecture would imply, is another characteristic of current age. And also misrepresenting who originated that with plagiarism and other misuse of intellectual property is another one. So in terms of those phenomena, as I grow older, I'm more optimistic about the future of education, because my generation perhaps wouldn't need to survive long enough to suffer all the consequences, but I'm more optimistic than that. Actually, when machines came to do menial work, humans did not become obese because we all go to the gym, we train, etc. So for the mind, we need the same thing. As the computers do more and more for us, we need to have something like a brain gym. So whether the new education with the gaming style, the online resources would be better as a brain gym rather than traditional education, which actually trained us also into memorization, perseverance, patience, and this, it's up to be seen. Thank you very much.
Waiting for a few slides, nothing much, just to welcome first of all to this exciting forum. We talk a lot about disruption in education. It's hard to miss any conference where disruption in education is not discussed. However, I believe it is so important, and I think will be transformational to what we do, that you can't really discuss it enough. I'm not even sure whether we entirely understand where this is going. So it's actually very good to explore it. In many ways, what we discuss here are different perspectives to a same principle. And so what I always prefer doing when I look at disruptions, technological disruptions or any disruptions for that matter, is I start by looking at how do we usually do things, what are the components of what we do, and how will whatever the disruption is change what we normally do. And if you look at what we do as educators, you can look at it to have different components. One of them is to provide students with information so they can talk with knowledge about the topic, the concept, the phenomenon that they are studying, whether it's philosophy or engineering or business. We have to provide students with information and data. Secondly, we provide students with the tools, the decision-making tools, to analyze the data. Call them paradigms, call them theorems, call them frameworks. We have to give them the tools to work with the data. What does it really mean? And finally, when they've done that, to interpret the data. It's not just a number, not just an outcome. What does it really mean? How does it impact the real world? How does it impact what we do? Finally, we hope that we've always taught students to think creatively and critically, to always demand, is this all there is? Is this the real way to looking at a problem? Now enter technology and ask yourself, how is what we normally do as educators changed by technology, or is it? And so let's take the first one. We said you have to start with providing students with data. Now, in the old days, you know, think back 30, 40 days, you had some data that you gave to the students, you walked them to the library, but by the mere logistics and the physical activity of that, the amount of data that we gave students was rather limited. So we were more likely very lopsided in terms of more theory and abstract frameworks and not all that much data. If you think what we're doing today, we have an abundance of data available. Now, that is good, but it also requires us to teach students to evaluate data. Is the data that I have abundantly access to valid? Does it really apply to what I'm looking at? And we've all been there. Many of us are in education, either as educators or as students. You know, you do what do students usually do, or researchers when you start something. You start with a search, whether it's a Google search or LexisNexis, and you get a mountain of information. Have you noticed when you graded term papers that there is a lot of data, but not all that much analysis sometimes? That is a real problem, you know. This should not be an exercise in data downloading. You know, if we want to teach people, we have to teach them to think critically. So I would say that's the first way in which our environment has changed, and one of the things we have to teach students, think critically about evaluating data. Secondly, the tools that we use to analyze the data, I would submit to you, are different as well. Not entirely, you know, critical thinking, logical thinking, I don't think that has really changed. But there are some tools to analyze an abundant availability of data that are new now compared to what we used to use. Big data, machine learning, artificial intelligence are methods that I think are really important for students to know. Why? Because they have to deal with lots of data. I think that is something we really should consider. Third, to interpret and understand really what the ramifications are of what we're looking at. We're looking at analysis based on a lot of data. Sometimes we can do things which we maybe shouldn't do. So whether to apply technology or not, whether we should apply big data analysis on Facebook data or not, with all the privacy concerns involved, that is something that really has to enter our decision process and our teaching process. That is, the importance of ethics was always there. It is even more there now because it will touch so much more people. And finally, I would say an increased focus for all the above reasons on critical thinking and creative thinking. What does that mean for business schools? Well, there's a number of things that we do in the business schools, and I would say that business schools in general do. First, we do make sure that people have abundant access to data, not just Google, because that data is not always validated properly, but proper data. In business schools, it's WDRS, it's CRISP, it's Bloomberg, and we make sure that students have readily access to all the data that businesses usually have access to as well. So when they graduate, they can properly use all the data that businesses, good businesses, use to make business decisions. We try to also make sure that more modern analytical tools are used. So for example, in this business school, as in many other business schools, we increasingly do introduce methods like big data and machine learning to teach students really how to properly analyze all that data. We introduce also new learning tools. You know, learning, as was discussed this morning, quite at large, does not only happen in the classroom. That will always be a component of it. But with the modern tools, the e-learning tools that we have, we can provide more richer, more engaging, more fun, more challenging environment by providing students with things that we don't always have time to touch upon in the realm of one course or one session in a course. And so I've had about 30 years of experience building these e-platforms. And what I found was that when you provide the right tools, the engaging tools, great examples, great videos, great interactive things they can do, students will actually do more and learn more. One of the best compliments I've ever gotten was, "My wife is really angry with me." I'm like, "Why is your wife angry with you?" He said, "Well, she says I'm spending too much time on your course website because there is always something new I can find there that is so interesting." That is what we need to strive for. Creating an environment that engages students, that makes it fun for students to learn, and motivates them to go dig deeper than the pure minimum that you can do in a classroom. Finally, what we've done in terms, and this is not just education as a function, but how you manage education. In this school, we've built a modern education management system that allows everyone in the management functions to much more readily have access to data, whether they're in the marketing of our programs, the program management of our programs, finance, accounting, or whatever. And so providing an environment that makes the organizers of the function work more efficiently and more rapidly and with more accuracy, that's something we should strive for as well. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I am Vassilios Tourassis, the Dean of the School of Science and Technology. I would like to give you a quick snapshot of who we are. We offer programs in biology, chemistry, physics, mathematics, computer science, robotics and mechatronics, and soon data science. Joint PhD program with engineering. We enroll almost half of the undergraduate population of Nazarbayev University. We have great plans for future programs and for accrediting at least 2 of our degrees. I'm not saying these things to impress you. I want you to feel my pain. President Katsu often says that he doesn't sleep at night worrying whether we are really building the university of the next century. I don't sleep at night worrying about delivering the curriculum tomorrow. And there are pressures that I'm pretty sure that many of you will be familiar with. First, we have a number of internal pressures because as we have evolved from the original steps and now we are opening up to the society at large with graduate and executive programs, we have to do all these things under 2 conditions. We have to accelerate. You cannot have an impact unless you produce a significant number of graduates that can have a disruption effect in the local society and abroad. And I have to do this by paying attention to sustainability because the financial situation in higher education is always a matter of times, and you have to be very careful about the resources that you have at your disposal. So within this context, I definitely enjoyed the conversation this morning about the attributes of the graduates that we need for the next decade and the next century, and I fully subscribe to those. And yes, humanities are extremely important, even in the field of technology. But at the same time, I'm an engineer, and this is a zero-sum game. We know that problem-based learning, we know that projects, we know that group work, we know that design experiments, all are extremely useful for high-quality education, and they work. There is a lot of evidence on this. But at the same time, in order to implement these modalities, you have to make space in your curriculum, and you have to persuade your faculty to change the way they teach. And yes, the professorate is conservative in some way, but they have the right to say, look, it took me 2 years to develop this course, and now you want me to deliver it in a totally different way that will increase exponentially the time that I will have to devote to this course, while the provost is asking for additional publications, high-quality research, and innovation if possible. Something has to give. I beg your pardon? No sleep, yes. Then we have the wives, of course, and they are on the door saying, you know. A small glimpse of hope recently when in Science magazine, I think it was the end of March 2018, there was a huge study, an observational study of the best programs in the United States and Canada, just to see the mode of delivery of STEM education. And what this study has discovered is that 55% of the courses are still delivered the traditional way, lectures, face-to-face lectures in the classroom. 27% features some activities that had a greater student involvement, and only 18% used a student-centered style. This created some kind of panic in the popular press with titles like Lecture Instruction Alive and Not So Well, Lesson Learned, Massive Study Finds that lectures still dominate STEM fields, and finally, and even more provocative, lectures are as archaic today as bloodletting in the era of modern medicine. I felt a little bit better, as I said, because at that point I realized that the problems that we are facing here are problems common in higher education around the world, even in the United States. If we go one step further and we talk about content, President Nazarbayev a year ago gave a very inspiring speech on digital Kazakhstan and set the course for a number of activities that we see implemented today. A year later, the European Union, an area of the world that we consider advanced, also came up with a study that found out that 90% of our future jobs will require digital skills. That only 44% of all Europeans lack these basic digital skills. There are 48,000 schools in Europe without Wi-Fi connection, and that issues that have to do with cybersecurity, data privacy, which are extremely important for citizens today, are not being addressed properly. In fact, a year later, after President Nazarbayev's speech, EU came with a new digital education plan in January of this year, which will be implemented in the years to come. What is interesting is that there is a digital economy and society index that follows this plan so that we can measure the output. And we have to be careful. When we talk about digital anything, we don't simply mean that we have to produce more computer science or IT graduates. We are talking about a set of skills that will apply to everybody in every field, because we want to equip citizens that will be able to function properly in this era of disruption. So these skills and the index have to do with connectivity, they have to do with human capital, integration of digital technology, actual use of the internet, and public services delivered online. I fret over the day-to-day delivery of curriculum, but I cannot ignore these data. And I have to make sure that our students will be able to move in the right direction. There we go into the issue of curriculum, because for every new set of skills that you have to introduce, something has to give. For some magical reason, the entire world is stuck on the 4-year education, with a very specific increments, semesters, courses, number of credits, and a lot of inflexibility. I'm pretty sure any one of you that has tried to change a course or a program would have heard from the faculty, you cannot do field X without course Y, this is impossible, etc., 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 because everybody becomes protective of their area. You also have on the other side accreditation agencies that put specific demands on our programs. And in fact, it is interesting that in the US, now we see, especially in the engineering fields, some of the major schools moving away from ABIT because they think that it inhibits the flexibility that the programs need today. So where do we stand? What is the message? What is the moral of the story? I told you about my pain because I can see how easy it is, if you are in my position, and most of you are in my position, to freeze. These are major challenges. It's almost impossible to address all of them in a satisfactory manner. And hence, in most of the cases, the urge will be to do nothing, to stay with the things that we know. This is the wrong reaction. I strongly believe that we can do something, but we have to do it smartly. universities are conservative places for a reason. We are not expected to jump on every trend in the market, on every trend in the society. We are expected to think about these things, filter them properly, and then follow the major trends only. So we are allowed to be a little bit conservative. And I think the study that you saw in Science somehow reflects that. But we will not be doing justice to our students if, after a lot of thinking and careful planning and using the resources that we have at our disposal, limited as they may be in every case, we move forward and we do the things that we need to do to equip the citizens, and I'm very careful, not just scientists, the citizens of tomorrow. Thank you.
Can you hear me? I'll take the first few seconds just to explain what we do. What I'm going to do today is to explain how public policy education is different, or how we handle public policy education in the age of disruption. Earlier this morning, we heard about the importance of government in the age of disruption. I can't, as a dean of the public policy school, I can't agree with you more, because we believe that good governance matters. And unlike Vassilios, my colleague, who has a very large student population, the graduate school public policy has the smallest, I believe, the smallest student population. But we bear the largest burden, because we bear the burden of governance for the entire country. And so, so what I'm going to show today is to examine how the governance, or good governance, has changed in the light of disruption, whether it's changed. And then we look at some of the roles that government plays in a disruptive economy. And then we look at what is needed to train people to ensure that there is good governance. And then I'll share with you a little bit of what we do in the Graduate School of Public Policy. The challenges of government is the same. Government attempts, in attempting to ensure good governance, there is the pursuit of efficiency, there is the pursuit of effectiveness, there is the pursuit of excellence. But of course, if you look at the world around you, the observation, general observation, is that the price of government service or public service delivery seems to have risen much faster than the average income of the population. And so this leads to the question, why is it true that the public sector is immune to innovation in the market, or disruptive innovation in the market? Is there a lack of disruptive innovation in the public sector? Now, of course, the answer to this is, of course, is no. There is, the public sector is not immune to disruptive innovation. What is happening in the public sector is what we call sustaining innovation. It is not a revolution that is taking place in the public sector as taking place in the private sector, but what is happening is evolution, using what is available to improve the quality of goods and services at higher costs. And you see this higher cost in terms of education, healthcare services, as well as in defense. Now, in the light of disruptive innovation, then the question is, what is the role of government? Well, government plays 4 important roles. One, as a user of disruptive innovation in delivering the services at the, in terms of quality as well as in terms of cost, lowest cost, as a promoter of the disruptive innovation in encouraging the industry and the market to utilize what is available in the marketplace. And then, of course, a very important role of government is as a regulator and controller of what takes place as a result of disruptive innovation. And this concerns exploitation of workers, such as Uber drivers and so on, the impact of negative externalities as a result of disruptive innovation, privacy issues, as well as protection of information, as in the case of Facebook, social media disinformation or fake news, as we have seen or heard many times, the ethics of new technology, who to protect in driverless cars, whether the driver or the pedestrians. The relevance and types of, we have to re-examine the relevance and types of the regulation that we use, whether we use rule-based regulation or risk-based regulation or sandbox regulation or self-regulation. So these are issues which government has to tackle in the light of disruptive technology. And then finally, the government also plays the role of leveler. We have heard about the impact on or inequity of disruptive technology. And therefore, the government has to step in order to ensure that the benefits of disruptive innovation is spread out equally, or if not equitably, across the different segments of the population. And so we talk about universal income, we talk about minimum or living wages and so on, and these are the roles that the government will have to tackle in the light of the disruptive innovation in the economy. And so we answer why it is important for government and what role the government has played. Now we ask what are the skills that are required in order for the government to play that role effectively and to ensure that the goals are achieved. First of all, we have heard a lot about cross-disciplinary training. We agree with that. In fact, the public policy school is best positioned to take advantage of this importance of cross-disciplinary training because we are essentially a cross-disciplinary school. Secondly, essential skills, technical literacy, problem-solving, teamwork, so on. Knowledge of disruptive technology, that's important. We need to know what's happening. And so we need to know science and technology. We need to know the economics of information communications technology. And very importantly is mindset, what I refer to as a 4G mindset. One is the mindset of growth, constant self-improvement, a mindset of group where you seek out and you value other people's skills and you try to leverage on those skills. Thirdly is gumption, or some would call it entrepreneurial skills, the skills to take risks, to try what is possible, try what's possible. And finally, what we call the global citizenship or good citizenship skills that we refer to. This refers to the values and your objective of trying to improve the well-being of the people that you serve. So what has GSPP, the Graduate School of Public Policy, done in delivering this public policy education? First, we continue to emphasize the importance of building essential skills. We also attempt to promote adaptability by ensuring that our students have a comparative perspective, a global perspective. And just to share with you, in our curriculum, all our master students go for what we call a Singapore component, where they go on-site in Singapore to experience how things are done differently in Singapore and to draw lessons from what they learn and to adapt those skills or those lessons for application in the Kazakhstan context. And then, of course, we leverage on technology in terms of the way we deliver our programs. We also try to blend work and learning. And this is showing a way in which we change the way that we deliver our program. One of the master's programs that we have is delivered on Friday evenings and Saturday afternoons. And this will ensure that people who are working can also learn at the same time. And this has been shown to be highly successful in terms of the enrollment applications that we have received. And relevance of research in the real world, and we ensure that our professors will test whatever research that they have in the real world by engaging them, by involving them in what we call executive education, where we try to train people who are already working, and this provides the test beds for them in terms of the results that they get from the theories or their research. And finally, we also try to introduce what we call a policy lab, which will bring different people together in an environment where they can design, then they can introduce new policies that will enable them to handle the complexity of the real-life situation. And sorry, there's a final one where we say it is important to engage students, not just while they're here, but after they've graduated. And this is where we try to engage our alumni in terms of coming back to the school to participate in some of the conferences that we organize, as well as in executive education, whether on a pro bono basis or at substantial discount. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, colleagues. What I'd like you to do now is to have a look at your pigeonhole questions. And can I ask you to turn to the one or two people sitting near you and show your questions to those people near you. Talk about your questions, maybe think about some additional questions or revisions to your questions. But this is over to you for the next 2 or 3 minutes. Talk to the people near you, behind you, in front of you, sitting next to you. Show them your questions, and then we'll have a couple of minutes to do that, and then we'll ask Waliha to put the questions up on the screen. So please turn to the people sitting near you and show your questions to them. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, do you need to go? Thank you very much. Sorry, I did call your time a bit early. Sorry, I had the wrong. Thank you very much. Go away. Say hi to your family. Wally, Harris's family have just arrived from no, Cyprus, so he's got to go and pick them up from the airport, so that's fine.
Let me know when you want the questions on the screen.
Okay.
You don't need the timer?
Probably not. No, I think we can turn it off. Thank you very much. But it was so. It's good. Sure. That's good. Make the heart sing. I like it. Let's put the questions up. Okay, thanks everyone for sharing your questions with your neighbours, and Waliha's going to put the questions up on the screen. So let's have a look and see what we've got. Okay.
Should we start with the question with the most votes?
Yeah, I think so. Not just yet. Sorry, everyone needs to read the other ones first. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Not just yet. No. Can you read that? I think that question's got the most notes. Your research on 2014 female leadership. Oh. Okay, how does that affect it? Okay, good. Aida, another one for you. Okay, good. Oh. Okay. Nice. Oh, okay, this is great. Okay. Let's just see Dean Sagintayeva.
Oops, yeah. Okay, so the first question is very interesting. So I even forgot about my research in 2014. And as Vassilios said, all these sleepless nights building the school just sometimes make some positive things and sometimes not very pleasant things. It's very difficult to me to understand this question why disruption and gender should be discussed together. Being a woman, a female dean, the only dean out of our big dean's family, being a mother, a wife, and a daughter-in-law, so all Kazakh people know what does it mean to be a daughter-in-law and to have a very big, a real Kazakh family. So I cannot see disruption or cannot see neither just these ceilings or walls, sticky floors or something. So sincerely, I do not understand this question. But I want to say that unfortunately the situation hasn't changed from that period of the time. And now we have less female top managers, I mean rectors and the vice rectors in Kazakhstan, unfortunately. And maybe it's again due to the mentality, many people will say, but maybe it's not just, I mean that the post in the government gives all opportunities to get these leading positions and to be top managers in higher education sector or in any other sectors. But it depends on the culture and on the self-understanding and the role the woman chooses in her life. But now just months ago, there were good changes in the government of the Republic of Kazakhstan. Now we have more vice ministers, female vice ministers, and just yesterday there was a new young lady was appointed as vice minister. So I think that it's a very positive trend, and it will be keeping on. The second question is, what do you think the labor market will be transformed in the next 5 years in Kazakhstan? I don't think that there will be some big changes in the labor market, but I would like to say that even now 60% of professions need digital skills. So, and here there are many research conducted and many reports that you may find the information, but what I really could see from all these reports that education is going to be forever. So I'm very happy to see this fact. So just if it's not going to be a traditional university, how do we understand now with all these lectures and just people are coming and sitting together? They can be the hybrid education with some online things. And at graduate school of education, we have this low residency model, and we use all these high-tech methods of teaching using just Moodle or some other things as a learning management system. But it would be reshaped, and they can be the live LLL principle will stay. And on Monday, our colleagues from National University of Singapore shared with other information, and they are thinking of the changes in the paradigm of education, saying that it's not the pre-employability university education, but post-employability, and keeping in touch with your alumni, giving them opportunity to upgrade their knowledge and maybe to get new knowledge, and just trying to train and retrain and relearn them all the time. I think it's the future of all universities. And I do agree with Stavros, who also said today about the knowledge is going to be old in 5 years, and we should not forget about our alumni, especially in many vulnerable social strata alumni. They are working in low paid, low salary positions, who cannot get their master degree, so they cannot afford them to get some certificate programs. How to make these open resources for them to be not in this this scary and fairy tale that I told you just now, just not to be in this pool of people who are not useful for the society. So I think that there won't be big changes in the labor market, but there will be a big change of mindset in Kazakhstan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Aida. Let's take a look at the questions again and see how they're all shaping up. We don't have to necessarily go with the top ones. I'm going to ask our deans to look at the one that's got number 10 votes on soft skills. We talk quite a lot about soft skills around our university. I must say our colleagues from the Career Centre, Yevgenia Kim is in the audience today, she's very keen on reminding us that employers always want soft skills. And I remember from my time in Australia, the employers said exactly the same thing. Of course we want people who are technical experts, and we want them to have soft skills. So soft skills are, of course, valued. At the same time, being nice does not land you the job. How does NU achieve the balance? Vassilios, can you have a go at this? And then
yes,
Patrick and Weng Tat.
I think there is a misinterpretation of the term nice in the context of soft skills. If you look carefully at what people want, employers want these days, they want people that are at the same time leaders, good team players, great communicators, and innovators. They are not talking about easygoing personalities, docile, friendly, that will follow orders. This is not the model that we are discussing here. We're talking about a new set of soft skills that will be very valuable for tomorrow. And I want to relate my answer to this to the previous question with another 10 votes on the zero-sum game for the curriculum, because that's, I think, a very provocative and interesting question. And I will say, yes, curriculum is a zero-sum game if you think in the traditional terms of credits and courses. There's no question about it. 240 credits. Kazakhstan is a signatory of the Bologna Agreement. ECTS dictates that. in order to put something in, you have to take something out. But I think the smart response on this, and we are relating this to the soft skills, is to find a way to integrate the teaching of these soft skills into the current courses. It's a difficult task, but this is the only way to go without disrupting the curricula in the traditional ways that we know them at this point. It is not an easy job, and you cannot do it across the curriculum at the same time. You have to be smart. You have to pick your best people, your best communicators, the most modern faculty if you want, and you have to encourage them, entice them to develop some of these skills within the context of regular courses. Group projects are a very easy way to do this, but you have to be very careful about how you will guide these group projects. Requiring the students to provide presentations of their work, limiting those presentations to 3 or 5 minutes so that they focus on what is important and what is not important. Asking them to take the initiative by designing projects that are open-ended. All these things take a lot of work. And as I said, they cannot happen at the same time, but you can start small. And I think success in those first steps will empower the organization to move in a faster pace later on.
Okay. Thanks, Vassilios. And we might ask, say, Weng Tat and then Patrick to respond to that as well. But I would also just reinforce what Vassilios is saying. And in fact, in the newly revised curriculum in the School of Science and Technology, you have very specific courses designed to do exactly that on scientific communication. So you're really putting time into the curriculum to make that happen. Weng Tat, can we go to you? And then maybe Patrick on this one.
If I may just answer the earlier question that was addressed to Aida. And in terms of in terms of the gender differences in leadership positions. Now, of course, as an economist, I would think in terms the gender differences could be due to discrimination. That's one. That it could also be a rational response by employers to the qualifications of the female employees. Now, of course, and the qualifications or the experience of the female employees is due to what we call maternity disruption. And so we now have technology disruption that will enable, to a certain extent, offset some of the negative effect of what we call maternity disruption, where the women has to withdraw from labor market in order to look after their children. In the sense that technology allows the women to work at home or work wherever they are without having to leave the job or terminate or suspend their job. So in terms of experience, they will be on equal terms. And so therefore, we may see increase in number of females holding senior positions. Also a point about the number of STEM jobs. We say the number of STEM jobs has increased or double those of the non-STEM jobs. An addendum to that is that those with soft skills will land STEM jobs much faster or better than those without soft skills. And so this leads to the discussion on soft skills. And some people say it's actually not soft skills, but it's actually hard skills because it's very hard to teach soft skills. And so they're the hardest of skills to inculcate or to transfer to students. How do we teach them? Well, I think my colleague Vassilios has already mentioned that we embed them in a way that we teach our students by requiring them to work in teams, by requiring them to write in memos, for example, so that they get a hang or they get used to writing and communicating, and also presenting what they have written. And so this will ensure that they're constantly reminded of the importance of good communication skills. And of course, to have a global mindset that requires them understanding the implications of what they do. And so this will require a knowledge of the impact of technology on society. And so it's not a zero-sum game. Actually, it does not necessarily have to be zero-sum game because you can embed them in the existing curriculum without deleting any of the essentials. Yeah.
Patrick, did you want to follow up?
Just maybe a few extra words. A lot has been said already by our colleagues here. I would actually dispel the notion that being nice isn't important. In today's world where every employer has access to your social media profile, you betcha, as one of the American politicians would have said, you bet that they will check what your behavior is like. And any company that hires people hires people not just on the basis of how well you can compute or how analytical your skills are. That is important. But whether you are a team player, whether you can work within the company, these skills are actually very important. And increasingly, your employers will know whether you display these skills or not. Furthermore, other what we call soft skills, I think, are becoming more and more important. It is easier, I would say, to imagine that at some point the hard skills will be taken over by machines. The soft skills, not so good, I think, or not so easily. So I actually believe that the focus on soft skills will grow rather than diminish. And so what we've done in our programs is we've introduced a lot of the soft skills, like communicating, business communication, teamwork. We also very recently increased the presence of ethics courses in our program. At some point in our international advisory board, our international advisors, who, by the way, a lot of banks and accountants were represented there, said, you know what, we're very happy that you teach a lot of finance and accounting, but it's a little heavy. Maybe we need a little bit more leadership and ethics. So we already had it in the program, but we actually increased the number of courses and credits in leadership and ethics in the program. Finally, last but not least, I strongly believe, and we very much apply in our admissions process, the principle of diversity. In a world that is moving very fast because of technology, you really need the different perspectives to a problem, whether it's a business problem or a scientific problem. And it is diversity that will drive these different perspectives. There is nothing, I think, so detrimental than admitting a class full of drones that are entirely the same, no matter how high their GPA is. We very much stress diversity in our cohorts.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Patrick. And Weng Tat made some very interesting remarks about maternity and disruption. Aida was just saying she felt her recent maternity leave didn't disrupt anything at all, really. So as she's a mum of 2 small kids, and she's been able to get back to work, I think, very rapidly, using technology to really help her and to keep in touch with university in the meantime. That's a whole conference on itself, and I know I've got colleagues in the room that would like to have a conference just on that. I can see some nods up the back there, and we will explore it. We have some great scholars, including Anna Cohen-Miller up the back, who's chairing the Mother Scholar Project. We run monthly Gender Consortium business breakfast to talk about these issues. So there's a lot to talk about. What I would like to do is touch on some of the questions that have come up in different ways, and that is the idea of interdisciplinarity. It is such a hot topic at the moment in universities around the world. I was in Singapore last year representing Nazarbayev University at a rectors conference, rectors from Asia and other universities, and it was the hot topic. What I'd like to do actually is ask any member of the panel to think about this, if I can ask you this question. In preparing for today, I came across a very interesting model of scholarship developed by an American academic called Boyer. And I think you're probably familiar with his work, even if you don't know his name. And he said back in the early 1990s that universities have focused for too long on a model of scholarship which is just on the model of discovery. So innovation, new knowledge is the model of scholarship. And Boyer's view is basically that we need to broaden out a model of scholarship to include the scholarship of integration that involves synthesis of information across disciplines, across topics within a discipline or across time. So it's the scholarship of discovery plus the scholarship of integration, plus what he calls the scholarship of application or engagement that goes beyond the service duties of a faculty to really look at service learning, that how the university impacts the community it serves and beyond. And finally, and this is the one I'm sure you've all heard about, he really developed the concept of the scholarship of teaching and learning in this specific context, and that is the scholarship of teaching and learning, that is the systematic study of teaching and learning. It differs from scholarly teaching, and it requires a format that will allow public sharing and the opportunity for application and evaluation by others. So it's 4 variations of scholarship: the scholarship of discovery, which we all know, but also the scholarship of integration and synthesis, the scholarship of application, and the scholarship of teaching and learning. And to me, that's one way to think about interdisciplinary research. But I'm interested in the views of the panel. And would anyone like to comment on that? Vassilios.
I'll give it a shot. Well, we talk about interdisciplinarity, and we tend to forget that this is something that we have been implementing for years and years. If we take a very narrow view that an interdisciplinary education considers a big number of courses from one traditional field, and then these students take courses from humanities, from another field, to augment that education. This is part of our curricula already. When we talk about interdisciplinarity, we mean about a much more interesting, careful, in-depth integration of the academic fields. And unfortunately, the question is there. I think departments are now inflexible silos of knowledge. Just before I came here, I read an article on the Times Higher Education Supplement. I think they came just out with the new rankings of the top 50, under 50 universities, a great example for all of us, because these are young universities. They don't carry necessarily the tradition of centuries, but they do things well. And they have excelled, and they are at the top of the world arena today in the top 50, under 50 category. I will not mention the name, but we had the provost of one of those universities there explaining exactly that departments are impediments right now to interdisciplinary education. Why? Because anytime you want to start a new program that will bring all these attributes together, individual departments will pull it in one way or the other, and in the end, they will stop it. Now, I know what I'm saying will send chills down my chair's spines, but I believe that we are seeing the end of the traditional departments, and this is something that we have to think about very carefully. Now, will we do away with disciplinary education? Of course not. I'm a huge proponent of programs. We can develop programs within faculties or schools with a broader theme. They can be closer to the traditional fields that we are aware of, but it is much more easier to shape, introduce, disrupt, or close down programs than it is departments today.
One of the things I think we, as educators, have to think about is whether we create an environment properly that allows for interdisciplinarity. I remember many years ago, I was working a lot at the university where I was working with the schools of technology and engineering, computer science, and at some point, I had a discussion with my dean, and he says, "Why are you working with these engineers?" And to me, that was I was totally surprised by that, because to me, it's trivial. If you want to tackle any problem, that you have to look at it from an interdisciplinary point of view. And so where we have to think about this, how do you apply that? How do you create an environment where that can happen at the point of our teaching function? So how do you create programs that are interdisciplinary? And so, for example, here, together with the School of Engineering, we have a program called the Master of Engineering Management Program. And so that bakes into the program itself interdisciplinarity. I think that is one of the things we should do, to find ways where we can connect students with other disciplines. Another initiative that we've taken here at the university, of course, is the Common Core. The Common Core applies mostly at this moment to the undergraduate programs, but it's very important that any undergraduate student gets exposed to what happens in other disciplines. You know, we very much believe in that. We think that will very much prepare students also to the world in which they're going to live and work. At the research level, you have to also think, again, how do you create the environment that allows for interdisciplinarity to happen? Just wishing it won't make it happen. So you have to create spaces, labs, where researchers are really invited to work together, where the the infrastructure is there, the support is there, and it becomes actually very appealing to work together. And so we have a number of these initiatives here on campus. Not so long ago, SAP committed itself to providing us with an innovation lab. And that innovation lab will be in a building right across. It's the mirror building of this building that has a lot of interdisciplinary research labs built around research clusters in it. And so that creates the environment and the infrastructure for researchers to be interdisciplinary. So those are two things I believe we have to think about. How does it apply at the teaching level and the programs level, and how does it apply, and what do you do to make it happen at the infrastructure level?
Okay, thanks a lot, Patrick. Wally has just reminded me.
I also may
sorry.
Here. So I also want to add to the question, to the answers of my colleagues. So we think that interdisciplinarity is the future of any university. Now, even if you want to publish a paper, you have to think not only in your field, but you have to understand what impact your research can be on other fields, on our subjects. And at our school, we always discuss how we can conduct research with our colleagues from NU schools, and not only at NU schools. Yesterday, I had a meeting with my colleagues from medical universities of Kazakhstan, and we discussed the possibility of having a research project on autism, children with autism. We have a program on inclusive education, and a very big part of it is children with special needs. But to conduct this research, we need support not only of GSC, but we need School of Medicine, because it's some medical things have to be discussed. Graduate School of Public Policy, because it's a social policy on healthcare. It can be also School of Business, how the just the private institutions gives a lot, and how they can contribute to this research and so on. And yesterday also we have discussed that the future of research, again, I would like to repeat, is given to this interdisciplinary approach. And moreover, just referring to the first question on the job market in 5 years, so interdisciplinary research approach may be may bring new majors that do not exist now, new professions that do not exist now. And by 2025, it's a very big report of McKinsey that says that 65% of students at the primary school will choose professions that do not exist now. And I think that the results of such interdisciplinary research will bring such new professions that we even cannot imagine now. So just you will say about cybersecurity, it was some nonsense 20 years ago, I think. But now we have this major, and this program is going to be introduced at all IT majors in Kazakhstan in September 2018. And I can continue this. So the question on what? Here.
When will master's education be fully online at NU? I think, Aida, your school is probably the furthest down that particular road.
Yeah. So just we're the first school that, not the first school, I think that executive MBA, it was a big role for us. It was some template for us when we designed our program, because the biggest challenge when we admitted students that we had fresh people coming just after their bachelor degrees with low professional experience and mostly English teachers. So when we decided to change and we looked through, and there was a question how you assess the quality of your programs, we always get feedback from our employers. We work with all stakeholders, not only with our just current master students, but we also speak with the Minister of Education, with rectors of universities, with school principals, with parents, with alumni, and so on. And then we do understand that we need people who have positions at universities or at schools, but who cannot come or contribute the whole time, the whole life, due to some circumstances, personal circumstances. And we thought that the low residency model, when they come for 10 days and they have these intensive sessions for 10 days every 2 months. Is the best solution for us. So they come here, but it doesn't mean that the period between these sessions we forget about them or they're not the part of the education process, not. And here disruptive technologies, they do help us. We have, as I say, we have Moodle, we have just many other tools that we use, wikis, vblogs, we have a special Adobe Connect when we can teach at several regions of Kazakhstan at the same time and check their assignments and so on. So it's a very big help. And again, without the support of disruptive technologies or edtechs, it would be impossible. But I want to repeat my idea that I presented just in the first part of this session. I think that university, traditional university, is not going to be traditional as now, but we should not just move to online education only. We should value the opportunities to come, to sit in one room, to collaborate, to be partners, to give feedback, to communicate, to discuss, to come to some ideas, to innovate and so on. So I don't think that we'll go to 100% online master course. We'll use more just massive open courses. We'll use some other technologies, but it won't be 100% online education.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Aida. I'd like to go to the question that was addressed to Aida, but I think is relevant to all the deans. And Weng Tat, I'm going to throw this one particularly in your direction to start with, to give Aida a break, and then we'll come back to Aida. And that is, it's the one with 14 votes. It says, Dean Sagintayeva, you've mentioned that peer learning and collaboration is important. And this is true of all the schools. And I think it's the right question to ask, because it's one thing to have this theoretically at the top of our minds. Another thing is to have it in practical form. So Weng Tat, I'm going to ask you first how you've done that, and I think in your case you've got some very specific resources from the strategic partners who've been instrumental in helping that, but the other deans might like to just give us a quick riff on that as well. So over to you, Weng Tat. How have you actually created a culture in your own school which is really emphasising academic and research culture based on collaboration and exchange of ideas? And of course, those of you who've done this or in the process of doing it, you know it's not easy. It's really quite a complex process to do, but really essential to our success. But Weng Tat, let's start with you.
Okay, if I may say so, in a public policy school, just to go back again to the last question, we thrive on multidisciplinary approach to solutions of problems. So in other words, we have professors from economics, political science, management, international relations, and at one stage we had a faculty who is actually a nuclear engineer trained in UIUC, and he teaches a course on science and technology policy. So it doesn't matter what discipline you are from, and that applies also to students. We admit students from medicine, engineering, science, math, religious studies, and so on. We have students from all backgrounds, and so that makes and the reason why we do that is because we value the skills that different people bring to bear on a particular issue or problem which we're trying to solve. And therefore, within the school, we respect the different disciplines. In fact, we value them. We are able to see the perspective that they bring to bear on a particular issue or problem. And so in terms of collaboration, peer learning, even for the students, I think they appreciate the different perspective that different people with different training backgrounds bring to the classroom. So in terms of learning, it's actually learning from peer to peer, as well as learning from the professors. And as for the professors, we also learn from one another. And this is the culture that we have within the public policy school. So in terms of learning collaboration, it makes things easier because we do not hold tightly to any particular doctrine or particular discipline, and we encourage cross-disciplinary collaboration. So, and of course, in terms of training of our students, we also require them to integrate whatever they've learned, whether it be in economics, politics, or in management, in what we call a capstone project, which they have to do. And of course, in the process of advising the students, we find that professors will also have to rely on some of the skills and some of the knowledge that they have so that they can supervise the student effectively. So this is something that is part and parcel within the public policy school, which we do not find difficult, and in fact we encourage and we thrive on that.
Well, it's not as natural in the School of Science and Technology, but I have to tell you that incentives work. Money works. The promise of money works. And we have a great example with the latest initiative of our Provost, Provost Aida, who said to the faculty that in the fall you will come up with collaborative research proposals to get funding. Otherwise, you will not get any funds. And a miracle happened. I'm not making fun. This is very serious. You can see our faculty moving around, not between departments, but between schools, trying to put groups together and develop clusters of knowledge in one thematic area or another. And it is really surprising. But I think we have a winner here, Aida. And if you can find the money to support these activities in the fall, I think we will have set the entire university in the right direction.
All right, thank you. Is this still working? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Hard to add too much more after two very eminent speakers before me. But I would say at two levels, at the research level and at a faculty level, we make sure that we have a very lively culture of research seminars and brown bag seminars, where people from different disciplines come together in the brown bag seminars. They don't have to come with a polished research project that they have finished. They come there really to the debate, the feasibility of an idea and how far they've gotten. So we created that in a very low pressure environment to make sure that people collaborate, listen to each other, and are open to each other's ideas, even if they're very premature, very much at the beginning stage. At the student level, we very much created a culture of peer learning. Every course in the business school requires teamwork, and so if you go to the fourth and the fifth and the sixth floor of this building, you will see a lot of team rooms where students have to work together on projects, learn from each other, and try to solve problems together. So it is very much baked in what we do. That's some of the things in the business.
A very short comment. So just we do not, at the Graduate School of Education, we do not say that there should be academic collaboration and research collaboration. We do understand that being a research university, it means that all academic programs should be based on your research. And all research should be research findings, should be distributed, disseminated. We do understand that the research university means that when a man or just a student enters the university, he is in any research group. He is involved in research, and it could be through our curriculum when we try to build developing research skills through all courses in every curricula at each school, but also involving them in research projects with our faculty, and also not faculty only of our school or of our university, but we have also strategic partners. So we have big research groups, and they are based on our academic programs. So I don't think that we should differentiate academic collaboration, research collaboration, or have differentiation between a faculty, a researcher, or a student. Everything should be together collaborated.
Thanks a lot, Aida. And that really brings us, I think, to one of the themes which Shigo mentioned in his presentation this morning, which is research-integrated teaching. We do try and think interdependently. As a research-intensive university, what we try and encourage is that faculty bring their love of research, their researcher's mindset into the classroom. And we know from the study mentioned in the Times Higher Education website that it works particularly well with master's students, but that doesn't stop us trying with undergraduate students as well. Top professors are really effective in undergraduate classrooms if they know how to communicate their subject well. Okay, I'd like to move to the question with 11 votes, and I think this, again, is really quite an important question. How are you altering the education of the next generation of professors? I think this reflects very well on the conversations we had this morning. How is the content of the PhD being altered, and how do you undertake faculty development for the current faculty? I'm going to have a go at that last question first, and Aida, if you want to have a go at any other aspects of this question, we can give that to you as well. But the last question first, and it's a very valid question, how do we undertake faculty development for the current faculty? Now, as we heard from Shigeo this morning, we have faculty from more than 55 countries, and they come at various levels, some full professors, some associates, some assistant professors, and everyone comes with a particular view of the world. But here we are in Kazakhstan developing a research-intensive university. So what we need to do is make sure that the best ideas in the world, again, in the context of advice from our strategic partners, are customised and blended and changed in a way that makes sense for Kazakhstan at this moment in time. So in summary, what we do for faculty development is we provide, through a British-based institution called HEA, the Higher Education Academy, a series of professional development programs which can lead to the title of Senior Fellow of HEA, which, if you happen to be applying for a job at a British university, is now becoming more or less a compulsory component to have on your CV. And so this is professional development for faculty, no matter how experienced they are, to come along and to learn or to be refreshed on the concepts of teaching in a university environment. And I have to commend, Vassilios, some of your faculty, particularly some senior professors who've decided as volunteers to come along to those courses and to learn how to teach, sitting alongside some very young and very early career researchers from Kazakhstan and from other countries. But everyone is sharing ideas, everyone is really prepared to create dynamic classroom experiences. So that is one thing that we do. It's on a volunteer basis at the moment, but our new promotions criteria actually specifically ask faculty to state how are they developing their role as professional educators. And I must say, as Vassilios hinted before, incentives work, and so we're starting to see a small number of people volunteering for these courses to these courses being oversubscribed by 100%. So those incentives have changed things. How is the content of the PhD being altered? Aida, do you want to speak to that, or you don't at the moment? Okay. Can I just say that we are looking more, dare I say, towards a more American model of a PhD program. Not that everything American is best, but sometimes it's not bad. So we're looking towards the American model of a PhD program, which is a lot more coursework. Particularly in the School of Engineering, we had a small number of compulsory courses and a lot of one-on-one supervision by faculty. And given the embryonic nature of the university, that did not work as well as we would have liked. The design was possibly not too bad, but certainly the implementation, given a range of factors, didn't work well. So when Aida arrived about 18 months ago, he looked at that and said, no, we need a lot stronger emphasis on coursework. And that's where we're moving now, certainly. Structure, a more robust structure with more coursework. So at the doctoral level, and certainly mandating that PhD students will do specific technical courses if their supervisor believes that they have gaps in their knowledge and they would benefit by that. So it's a much more structured approach. Weng, as Dean of the Graduate School of Public Policy, opened his PhD program last year, and that is on that much more structured model. The Graduate School of Education is now more structured. And the Graduate School of Business is developing theirs probably for the next 1 or 2 years opening. And Vassilios' School of Science and Technology, is working in conjunction with the School of Engineering. So it is a different approach. It's a consciously different approach, and we are resourcing that appropriately. And I guess that if I go to the first of these questions then, how are we altering the education of the next generation of professors? part of what Aida's innovation has been here at Nazarbayev University is to make sure that PhD students are all required to teach. So they will be, they're getting more money in under a different funding model now, but they will all be required to teach. And in the Office of the Provost, my colleagues, led by Duncan Priestley, ensure that all teaching assistants, and now including PhD students, undertake compulsory training in how to teach. So this is under our quality framework, which is very precise. It's an adaptation of the European standards and guidelines. So you can see we're a hybrid of European, British and American good ideas. So we hope we've got the best of all worlds. But we compulsorily make our teaching assistants, so they can actually be master students as well as PhD students, learn how to teach. So our colleagues teach basic principles of classroom management, how to use the Moodle learning management system, how to think about creating good assessments, and so on and so on. So we're trying, and I would actually reflect that back on some comments that Laura Pulwaran was making this morning, really about the development of faculty. She mentioned in her presentation it's not good enough just to attract really good faculty, but to retain them. And I can speak as someone who was at the University of New South Wales for many years. I personally benefited a lot from very targeted professional development opportunities. In my case, they were specifically for women in leadership. That's something I would love to be able to replicate here in due course, because it certainly changed my career. But there's a wealth of ideas that we can get from our strategic partners, from our own backgrounds. We just will need some time and resources to start systematically implementing those here. But the development of human capital is front and centre in terms of the way Kazakhstan is viewing its mission in the world, and we want to be a microcosm of that. So it's not just attracting, but developing human capital. So we want to be the rich network that people love to come to work in, to study in, and really go out to the world and do great things, and then come back and add value in different ways. So I don't know if that answers the question, but we're trying. I wouldn't pretend for a minute we've got it all right, but what we want is, in a sense, an ecosystem of professional development at all levels. But I think what Weng Tat was saying is really important, that in a sense it's the culture of collaboration within the schools that can really enhance and develop that. And the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy have been terrific at reaching out to early career researchers in our graduate school of public policy, mentoring them, guiding them, developing them, inviting them to be contributors to books, inviting them to be panelists on conferences in Singapore hosted by LKY, and so on and so on. So that human touch, as well as all the systems and structures together, can really work very effectively. Okay, does that answer that question?
Yes.
Too much. Too much. Okay, all right. Can I then give the floor to the audience? So I know you've got questions here. Are there any questions that people would just like to ask in this open forum now, given that we've got about 10 minutes or so before we finish? So any questions? Yes, Aishan. Aishan is a PhD student in the Graduate School of Education and also a representative on Academic Council.
Thank you, Loretta, for introducing me. My name is Aijan, and I'm a PhD student at Graduate School of Education. I'm really interested in the last question, which was just on the screen, and I'm very curious about local faculty members, about the trends, about their employability at Nazarbayev University after returning back with their PhDs from abroad, for instance. What will be the numbers in the future? Because now we have faculty members from 55 countries, and I'm really curious about Kazakhstani faculty members and their future at Nazarbayev University. Thank you.
Sure. Anyone on the panel want to take that? No? Okay. Aida would like to take that one. Thanks, Aida.
Okay.
Do you want a... Yep.
It does work.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Ilesomia Deshida. I'm the Provost of Nazarbayev University and the development of human capital at the professorial level is extremely important in this university. We've deliberately not put numbers, okay? No numbers, no numbers. It's an international university. And for me, I say it, and I'm sure for Shigel, quality, excellence is the mark to be admitted to faculty. And we've put programs in place for the students coming back on Talab, on Bolashak, the ones that we see don't have the experience yet to compete on what I call CV, your resume. We've put together what is called staff postdocs. Students come back, we employ them. We have many now, we're going to increase, 20% teaching and 80% research. And you get employed in the university. You teach and you do research. The fundamental stuff is to expand your CV so you can compete internationally. Okay, so that's very important. And is Professor Sabasov here? It's not here. That's a Kazakhstani citizen. He was sitting down there this morning. We just brought him back from United States. We're trying to employ him to be professor of biology and director of one of our centers. So we are doing everything to actually go around the world to look for Kazakhstani citizens who want to come back. He's an associate professor of biology, biomedical sciences.
Full professor.
Yeah, to come here as a full professor.
Yeah.
But in the United States, an associate professor of biology at the UT Medical School in Houston. Okay, so we go all over the world, interviewing everybody, especially a lot of Kazakhstani citizens. And I can tell you, we went to Washington about a month ago, and there are what is it called? There's a lab in Israel, in Ben Gurion University. There are 6 young Kazakh ladies in plant genetics in the lab. The whole lab is full of Kazakhstani students, and we've interviewed one. Hopefully, she'll be coming back in the fall to start a postdoc. So we have structures in place to train and to employ people, but we don't put numbers down. Because once you start putting numbers down, people assume. People don't compete. In international research university, competition is extremely important because that is the only way you can climb to the top. So structures are in place, we're trying our best, and we have people to guide us in the university to really make sure that we make a difference in the development of the professorate in Kazakhstan. But one thing we want to do is when we train for people for professorate, don't stay here, okay? Everybody wants to stay in Nazarbayev University. We want, we want to encourage people to go to other institutions all over the country, okay? All over the country. We're not only training for Nazarbayev University, we are training professorate for all universities in Kazakhstan. So we're going to start new research programs, actually, that Dean Tourassis was saying, that we'll have funding within our university and also integrate another Kazakhstani institution into this program so that people will come here and students, PhD students from KBTU, from Kazakhstan East Technical School, we come here and do research with our faculty. So these are things that we're doing across the board so that we can train the next generation of Kazakhstani professors. Thank you.
May I make a very small comment being a local dean?
Oh,
Yeah, as a local dean. So to make a very small comment on it. Very often I have just graduates of Bolashak and Talab scholarship programs coming to me, and sometimes they are a little bit offended not being admitted as assistant professors. And just what I always do answer, so one half of me, being as a Kazakh, I feel sorry that they came back and they didn't meet their expectations, so they have to train again. But for me, just it's more important to have professionals in my school. And it doesn't matter what nation. So, and I always do say, do not speculate here. If you say about the nation, it's a little bit speculation. When you say about your professional skills and you say about your own characteristics, your contribution to research, and you say that the competition wasn't fair, it's a different thing. And so as a school, we decided not to make preference to local or not to local. We see that the standards of entering and being a professor at GSC should be equal to anyone, to any candidate. The second thing that I would like to mention is about a new for the nation. And we do motivate our graduates of School of Education to go and to work, not in Astana, not in Almaty, to go to regions. We have school leadership programs, and we do encourage them to work in the rural places also, to go to west part of the country, to the north part of the country. And very often again, just our alumni come to me and say why they cannot stay and be professors, even they agree. They can compete now with the postdocs, for example. But we do say so. Again, the mission of the university, and not only faculty should understand that, the administration should understand that, a new for the nation. I think it should be it should be clear for every a new graduate. And what we do in our school, that you cannot apply for any position at the GRC if you do not go and work somewhere. And you may come if you worked somewhere at least 2 years, then you may come back. So just it's the answer of a local team. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Aida, for that very important local perspective. Just to go back a few moments to when we talked before about developing our faculty, I have to say the people that are the first to volunteer for any training, any development, are always our local Kazakh faculty, always. They will put their hands up for everything, and I strongly recommend that to continue, because it's so important to create opportunities here so that our great people can then move all around Kazakhstan and create the knowledge economy that everybody wants. Okay, we've got time for one very final question, if there is one. Any other final question from the audience? Okay, yes, please.
Well, actually, I have two questions. First, regarding the impact of technologies on education, on research. Well, here, I fully agree with Aida's remark that the regional universities. I am representing the regional university of Kyrgyzstan, and I have the following question. Yeah, how just to manage with those teaching staff? Just who are stubborn or unwilling to changes. That is very important, yeah, because in this case, for Nazarbayev University, that is okay, but for Kyrgyzstani case, well, this is the problem. And the second question is related to professional development. Are there any challenges or opportunities for Kyrgyzstani universities, to set a partnership for professional development of teachers?
I cannot
Thank you.
say so.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that I can answer again the second question. Months ago, we had a very big delegation from Kyrgyzstan, and we have announced that we have our professional development programs for our university top managers. So for rectors, vice-rectors, directors of departments, deans of different schools. And we have cordially invited our Kyrgyz colleagues to join this program. I even had the conversation with your Vice Minister of Education, where I explained the conditions of the course and invited everyone to participate in EHELF and to come and to be a part of our professional development program. So it's not only for top managers, we also have for university faculty. So you are very welcome. If you are interested, you may stay, and then we can discuss the possibilities of our partnership. Thank you. and just about stubborn and unwilling faculty. So my counterpart at the University of Pennsylvania, Associate Dean Professor Matt Hartley, begins his lecture at our professional development programs for 5 years with the first slide, and it never changes. It shows a cowboy herding the cats, and he says, if you are the president of the university, it's the same as herding the wild cats.
So I think that's a very nice note on which to finish. I know Vassilios told us before that incentives work. Incentives do work. We've seen that. Not punishments, but incentives. If we can be creative about how we incentivize good behavior, then that's possible. We are out of time, I'm sorry to say, but Shigeo reminded me to let you know that if you had a question and it wasn't answered today, we will do our best to write answers to those questions on the Hoover website after the Hoover app after the conference. So even if you didn't get it answered today, please keep the Hoover app open and keep looking at it. We'll do our best to answer. But if you could please join me in thanking all the panel members. Thank you very much. And we now have coffee served in the upper atrium. Thank you.
Well done.